Hi, Myra.
Hi, Kimberly.
This is Myra Holtzman from the Empowerment Experience. And why don't we just jump right in and you can introduce yourself and what you're offering to the world is.
So I'm a empower mentor and a psychotherapist. But really, if I had to encapsulate it into one word, it would be embodiment. That's what I want to bring to my clients. That's what I want to bring to the world. I think it's huge.
So also, Myra and I met. We have a mutual friend, Ellen Bader, and we met when you had Sequoia was just 3 months old. And
That's right.
one of the reasons why I wanted to share your wisdom with the Magamama community is just that I'm really interested in bringing a lot of different voices together, voices of professionals of different kinds, but also mothers' voices, because I feel like that's so useful for women to just hear other mothers' experiences and what was surprising in the process, what you could have been prepared for and weren't, what's impossible to be prepared for, but that we can share with each other. And
Right.
one thing that really stood out for me is that I remember the first time that we met, you were so frustrated about your recovery process. And when I found out that your baby was only 3.5 months old, I was just so surprised because I felt like you were so far in the recovery process when I compared to myself and how I felt when I was 3.5 months postpartum.
The one thing to me that every mom needs is she needs a community of people who really will be able to reflect back and witness her process, no matter what it looks like, in a really gentle, patient, loving way. You know, as I'm saying that, you were the sole source of that in my life at the time. I mean, I had people who were very compassionate, but, you know, they were moms that had been moms for 30 years already, or moms that had been, you know, were well past the newborn stage and out of that sort of hormonal hazy swirl that happens as your body sort of readjusts to, you know, the ever-changing needs of your baby, you know, from breastfeeding to not having enough sleep to, you know, just all of that kind of stuff. So community would have just made a really huge difference in my life at that time. And I had it to a certain extent, but it certainly, it could have, you know, I wish that I had had more people around me, like people that I could have sat with almost every day and seen and had, you know, baby play dates or, you know, walking time or coffee time, because it was me and Sequoia, and that was it. You know, there was no adult time. It was rare, and I wasn't working that much. I mean, I paint this picture like it was terrible. It wasn't, but it was intense. I mean, I was in it. I was like, wow, this is one of the most intense times of my life, probably the most intense time of my life. You know, if I had been maybe more aware, I would have connected with mothers in my birth class, or signed up and gone to, like, at the prenatal yoga classes that I went to and said, hey, let's meet for coffee. Like, those kinds of connections are going to be really important, because the friends that I had, you know, if they're not in the same situation, it's not that they can't know, but they're just in a totally different space. And you know, even my sister who lived close by, she was a great support, and she didn't totally get it because she's never had a child. So community
like
support.
That's something that maybe the yoga teacher or the birth coach, because a lot of people who are going to be watching this are mothers, but a lot of people are also women who work with mothers. And part of what I'm trying to do is give people tools like, how can you prepare in your last trimester for the postpartum period? Because we prepare for the birth, but we don't prepare for the postpartum.
So true.
For the yoga teachers and the childbirth community facilitators, and those people can say, like, hey, you guys, you're kind of all strangers and you're just meeting now, but take the phone list and, like, paste it to your refrigerator, and when you're feeling down, call somebody.
Yes.
Because even calling somebody is hard sometimes, because
Yeah,
I found that asking for help is something that I really had to learn as a new mom, because I was always the one giving the help and being a helpful friend, and it's so hard for me to, like, not be a helpful friend and to have to need help.
Totally. Oh my God.
You called it, like, the hazy swirl. Sometimes you're so in the hazy swirl that you're like, I can't even call anybody. I don't even know what I need. But it's like, if you had the phone list on your fridge, you just call. And if someone said to you, you're going to have times where you feel like you're in a hazy swirl, and that's the time for the phone list, then that could be one way to be prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that just would have made the hugest difference. I mean, for like you said, yoga teachers or massage therapists or whoever works with pregnant mamas, to help them connect to other pregnant mamas, like even to host like mama salons where it's not just about buying things, because I went to a few of those things, but really connecting mothers to mothers. Like that to me is the best of both worlds. And I can't even say how much I connect what you said around, we prepare for the birth, but we don't prepare for the postpartum. Even what would have been helpful, and this wasn't an option with my midwife, because she was an hour south of me, but to have to have my midwife come and visit me like once a week, or just to have that kind of relationship postpartum, because it was like, in their model was, as soon as you give birth, I'll come in for the, once a month check-in, or, those check-ins for the baby. But what about once a month check-ins for the mama, where she can just sort of like let down and just talk about what it's like? Because it was, I just keep using the word intense because that's the only thing that comes up. So yeah, we don't prepare for the postpartum part of birth.
I think that's what the role of the postpartum doula is. It's just that women it doesn't get the value that it needs to get, because even in Brazil, the midwives are just so busy, and everyone agrees across the board that the postpartum period is what gets left. It's like this dangling end that everybody knows is a gap that needs to be filled, but there's so much around the birth, and then midwives are so spread out thin that. But it's hard because you share one of the most important experiences of your life with somebody, and you've developed this connection, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like it's just this big gap. So it's a good
That's what it was. It was this big gap.
To hire a postpartum doula and to ask for that maybe as a gift at the baby showers. Like, I'd like people to just like people put together the food list of people delivering food, that they also ask for some postpartum care for themselves. And this also kind of segues into self-care. If you don't have a habit of self-care, it's the hardest time to take care of yourself. All your focus gets taken to the baby, and really your own self-care is what's going to give you longevity.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
help you to feel, even in the moments where you feel incapable and inadequate, that you still have energy, at least because you've eaten, and you've eaten food that you want to eat, and all of that. Yeah,
no, I'm totally with you. And just a little sidebar about that with me, one of the biggest ways that I did self-care was through physical exercise. I mentioned earlier that I was an athlete my whole life, and then to not have my body perform the way that it was. And then, like, I remember the first time I went running, and I totally peed in my running shorts because I didn't realize that those muscles were not going to be as strong as they were. Like, these were just things I didn't get. And I'm sure people told me about them, but I didn't, and I remember coming home and being like, what am I going to do now? Like, what's going on? And I couldn't do the physical exercise, not just because of that, but because I was so exhausted all the time. So trying to work out, it was like, the first 5 minutes I'd be like breathless and like want to pass out.
Your exercise, and also not being able to exercise to the degree that you wanted because of just overall energy and exhaustion, and then also having unexpected physical consequences for exercising. And
absolutely.
It's definitely something that we find, because I think one of the themes that's come up in our talk right now is just expectations, and expectations of how fast you should recover, because we don't talk about it at all. And so everyone thinks 6 weeks is the end of postpartum, or because you go to the doctor and then you get your check and then you're done. But really,
it's true.
It takes at least 7 or 8 months for your organs to even go back into place. And if you run before that, then you run risk of incontinence, which you may not even have at the time, or prolapse, but you may have years later. And then most women who get back too soon have a lot of back pain after a couple of months of doing it, because their organs aren't where they need to be, and so the lower back is taking all the stress. But this is something that makes me think also that, which the postpartum doula is part of that, but is like, because I think when you're pregnant, there's just something where, first of all, the hormones make you not be able to focus as well. And
Yeah.
you're meant to be focusing on the birth because it's a big event.
Yeah.
So maybe if people talk to you about incontinence, it just goes in one ear and out the other because you're just
Totally.
thinking, and you're also, I think everyone kind of thinks, well, that's not going to happen to me. Like, like that's for those other people. That's not, like, I'm not, like, I'm strong
Yeah.
and I've exercised those muscles. And, but the thing
It's like
that,
you're reading my mind. That was exactly the ticker tape that was running through my head. It's like, I'm fit. I'm different. It's, like that won't happen. And then it did. And then of course the shame ensued. And I was like, wow.